listening to The Motherhood Experience, a podcast where you are part of the conversation with moms, for moms, and by moms. Let's jump into this episode with me, your host, Val Kleppen. Well, hello, friends, and welcome to the Motherhood Experience podcast. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to introduce you to today's guest. I have been following her for years and years, was so thrilled that she was willing to be on the podcast and share her motherhood journey with you. I know you're going to be encouraged. Before we get into it, I would just like to say, be sure you are following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you say hello to us wherever you're following us. Comment, share, like, subscribe, all of the algorithm things. You know the drill. Today's guest, Elizabeth Parsons of Purely Parsons, should I say at Purely Parsons over on Instagram, is just a sweetheart of a woman. She has 6 kids. You'll get to hear her incredible story today. And I'm just, when you feel like you know someone because you've been following them on social media, but you've never really spoken together. I felt that, of course, starting this interview, but immediately just such a hospitable spirit, felt like we were old friends. I really enjoyed this episode, and I think you will too. So now that I've gone on in the introduction, here is the episode with Elizabeth Parsons. I am so pleased to have with me the one and only Elizabeth Parsons. You might know her as Purely Parsons on Instagram. Elizabeth, welcome to the Motherhood Experience.
Thank you so much for having me.
I like to start every episode with ages of kids and stage of motherhood you're in. So why don't you introduce your family to us?
Sure. So I'm Elizabeth, and my husband Noah and I have 6 kiddos. My oldest is 11, and then we just kind of stair step from there. So we have 11, 9, 7. We have 4-year-old twins, and then an almost 1-year-old as of today. He'll be 1 on Friday. So lots of different ages, lots of different stages. You say what stage of motherhood? I don't really know what, because we're in, so like, if we just had 2 kids and it was like 11 and 9, it would be like, oh, we're like totally out of the like younger kids ages. But no, we have a plethora of stages, but I would say I'm very much still in just like the young kid stage of motherhood.
Yeah. So I have followed you on Instagram for years. I know a lot of your story, but would like to pick it apart in some pieces here. I know that you and Noah have a very special relationship. Your relationship with him is part of your testimony. When you guys were married, what were your thoughts or plans on starting a family?
I think it was always a plan. I think we wanted to be married for a little while before we started having kids, just so that we could enjoy being newlyweds. But we were really convicted a couple years into our marriage. I was just on hormonal birth control, and we were convicted that, that's not really trusting the Lord. And so I came off of it, and like, thankfully, I didn't have any like long-term side effects from that. And we were able to get pregnant very quickly. And so 4 years into our marriage, we started having kids, and totally changes everything in the best way, and also the most exhausting and humbling and refining way. But kids were always in the plan for us.
Yeah. And when you were a nurse when you started your family, right? Or were you still in nursing school?
I was a nurse. So I graduated, and then 2 years later, we started having kids. So I was a nurse for a couple years before we started.
And so was it becoming a mother, or was it Noah's struggle with autoimmune stuff, or was it the combination of that started your journey toward a more holistic health approach?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both, because I didn't grow up this way, thinking this way, and neither did Noah really. So we were just very much normal in our way of thinking, and now we are very much abnormal, I would say, compared to to most of society. Even just, I think it was earlier today, he was like, yeah, I think we think a lot different than most people, like not in like a, we're so much like, we know so much more. It's just like, we just approach things differently. And
Right.
so it was a combination of the two. I think for him, he had his own journey with his health. And for me, it was more getting pregnant and having a baby, but also having to unlearn a lot of things that I had learned in nursing school and just in the medical field. Um, Seeing things in the hospital and then kind of being like, I want different for my kids, you know, and it can be different. And so I think just as soon as I became a mom, it made me start to be open to questioning things and to doing things differently. But even that took years of making decisions. And you know, we always say like the oldest is kind of the guinea pig, and bless her heart, like she's the best. Like she's turned out great, but like yes, there were things that we did with her that like we didn't do with subsequent kids because we researched and we knew better, and so then we did better. You know, we did we changed what we had done. And so it was kind of a combination of both though, because his journey really, I would say, kind of pioneered the way for our family, and was a lot of the reason why we started to do things differently in terms of cooking and the way we were eating, and just the things that we were bringing into our home. A lot of that was impacted by his autoimmune stuff, and so I had to learn to cook different ways and to prepare things different ways. And then with Selah being a baby, when she would get sick, it was just kind of like learning as I go.
Mm.
You know, researching like, okay, she's I think she's got an ear infection. How could I treat an ear infection but not have to do antibiotics? And so that just came with time and experience. And she was by far our sickest child because we did certain things that we, you know, didn't do with other kids. And there's some guilt with that for sure.
Mm.
But the Lord is faithful, and He protected her, and we learned so much, and have been able to thankfully have like really healthy kids, and like you can't really ask for more than that. So
Right, right. Did you feel kind of in a way that you were living a double life with taking this more holistic approach at home, but still having to go to work every day and doing nurse things?
yeah, and I talked a lot about that. I think in the time that when I was still working as a bedside nurse, just the feeling of a little bit of hypocrisy, because you believe these things, and you believe this way of approaching health, but then you're doing completely opposite when you go to work and you clock in and you've got that uniform on. For me, it was a little bit easier because of the specialty that I was in. It wasn't really chronic. I did do some chronic thing, like I did work with some chronic patients, but most of what I was doing was like very acute care, surgical type stuff. And so it was a little bit different, but not really. I mean, I was still treating symptoms and covering up symptoms. And yeah, that was really hard. And I think towards the end, it did get to where I was just like, I can't in good conscience, like do this type of stuff anymore. And especially when I would get, like they would float us to different units, and I would go to like the NICU or like oncology. I guess I should preface, I was a pediatric nurse. And
Right.
so even more so, this was applicable to my own life. And so when I would get floated to the NICU or to pediatric oncology, it was just, it was hard. It was really, really hard. And so I think that started to wear on me towards the end. And then the Lord just kind of provided me an out at like the perfect time, like right as COVID was starting to ramp up. I was able to leave the bedside and come home and be home for good. And I still am licensed as a nurse, but I don't know if I'll ever go back to the bedside.
Mm. Yeah. Your two girls are your oldest, is that right? Do I
Mm-hmm.
have this right?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
and then you had a boy after that. Did you move once in that time?
Did we move? Yes. we did we move once in that time? I'm trying to remember.
Just
So
with the 3, or was it
um
twice?
so we had Enoch in San Antonio, and then we moved like out to the hill country. So yeah, there was one move in between Enoch and the twins.
Okay. And then things kind of went crazy in a hurry, in a great way, right? In a great way.
Yes.
But you had quit nursing, you started making elderberry kits
Mm-hmm.
and selling.
I had started making those before I quit, actually. That was
Right.
like the fall of 2019. I had just a very small platform, and people wanting me to send elderberry syrup to them, just people that I knew from like, childhood, or just from different states we had lived in. And so I started like making the dry ingredients and had these kits. They're just very rudimentary. I look back on the way that they looked then, and I'm like, oh man, those were so bad. But like, everybody starts somewhere, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And we've grown, and even now they're super simple, but they make it attainable for people who have never made elderberry syrup. And that was all I wanted to do. And so I started selling those in 2019, and it was such a blessing for our family. And then in early 2020 was when I left the bedside. Not
Yeah.
because of those, like that wasn't the way.
It was
We
an
didn't
overnight success.
overnight success. Yeah, no. But there was a lot of different things that went into that. But mainly I had gotten pregnant, and we had moved an hour away from the hospital that I was working at. And I went to one shift and I drove the hour there and the hour back and the 12-hour shift. And so by the time you get home, you've been gone for 14, 15 hours. It just is not worth it. It was just not worth it. And I was very grateful to be in the position where I could just leave it. And so that's what I did, with honestly full intention of returning in some aspect to nursing after I had this next baby, because that's what I've always done. That's what I had always done. But it didn't work out that way, and I'm very grateful. So
Right. And you were also homeschooling
mm-hmm. Yeah.
in this time as well.
Yeah, we had homeschooled, and my oldest was still very young at that point. And I was not working full time. We made a lot of sacrifices for me to be able to homeschool our kids. I worked every single Saturday, so we didn't have to pay a nanny to come watch our kids, because by the time you pay somebody to come and watch your kids, then you're not really making much, and it just doesn't make sense to be away from them. And so we sacrificed our Saturdays so that I could work. And then I was working full time for a short stint. My husband had a flare up, and that was a blessing to be able to work full time for that short period of time. But for the most of my career, I was not full time. I was working just kind of PRN whenever I essentially wanted to, which was great. That's a great part of nursing.
Right.
But yeah, we were homeschooling. So I was able to be home during the week to do that with them.
Yeah. And then your 4th pregnancy. As I trail off.
For the people who have no idea, they're like,
Right.
what?
Yeah. How do I want to talk? I want to say surprised everybody, which maybe not getting pregnant wasn't a surprise. But do you want to hit the highlights of that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we got pregnant with our 4th in like early 2020, and then the world shut down. And I had always desired to do an out-of-hospital birth. Up until that point, I had done all hospital births, but natural, without medication. And so I knew I could do, an out-of-hospital birth. And I had always desired to do that, whether it be a birth center or at home. And then COVID hit. And so I was like, okay, this is just like, let's just do this at home. And so that was the plan. And we found a midwife, had, regular prenatal care. Everything was was great. Everything was normal. I did opt out of the anatomy scan because during COVID, you couldn't bring your kids to anything, and so
Right.
we didn't have family. Like my husband would have had to take off work, and it just there was just not a great way for me to be able to drive all the way into the city to get an anatomy scan and not be able to have my kids. And so, my midwife was like, well, you can opt out of it. And if you're comfortable doing that. And we were, and that's not abnormal for us necessarily. We had always had 20-week scans, up until then. But like with my fifth pregnancy, I didn't get an anatomy scan either. I did get an ultrasound, but the anatomy scan, I feel like, if that gives you peace of mind, that's great. And you can definitely do that. And I think that's like 99% of people. But for us, I think it creates a lot of unneeded stress. I experienced that with previous pregnancies where they were like, oh, we couldn't see this exact picture of the heart, so you're gonna have to come back, or oh, your placenta is a little bit low, it's covering, this is gonna be dangerous, so you're gonna have to come back and get reassessed. And then for us, it always ended up resolving itself. And so, there's some stress that comes along with that I just feel like. And then also, we don't really know how ultrasounds affect the baby. It is heating up that amniotic fluid, and
Mm-hmm.
babies always move away from it, and so there's, I don't think that they're 100% benign, like there's always like effects that it has on babies. So that was kind of a rabbit trail, but we were comfortable, we were comfortable declining it, and just having regular prenatal care otherwise. And everything was great. Everything was normal. Vital signs were great the whole pregnancy. Measuring how I measure, I'm very tall and broad. And then we got towards the end of the pregnancy, and I really started getting large. And we know babies grow a lot during the last few weeks. And I was getting very uncomfortable. And my midwife was like, well, why don't we just go get a scan? Because I had asked her, I was like, you would hear, like, if there was two in there, like, you would hear two heartbeats. You would have felt two babies. She's like, yeah, but let's just peace of mind, go get a scan. And so I did a very late third trimester scan, and they just saw one baby. We said, you would see two, right? And she's like, yeah, we would see two, but there's just one. He's really long. He has a lot of hair, and he's head down. And so we were like, okay, great. I guess I'm just, really just ready to have this baby. I kind of just chalked it up to like, we had moved, we had a homestead now, I had 3 other kids to take care of. And so then I went into labor, and the labor was great. And there was some abnormalities when it came to the labor pattern compared to my other kids. It was just the contractions were very inconsistent. They would be in my front. I historically have back labor, which is like torture in and of itself. But this labor was different in that I would have back contractions, and then I would have contractions in my front, and they would just like kind of flip flop. And I was in like pretty active labor, and then it would kind of stall. And it was just like a little bit different, a little bit weird, in terms of pattern. But then it started to progress. My midwife said, well, why don't you lay down, just take a rest and try and nap. Like, who does that during labor? I don't know. But I was able to fall asleep for a short time, I guess enough for my body to relax enough to just kind of get past the hump. And then I birthed our first baby. I think people know where this is going. I birthed our first baby in the tub. He was breech, and frank breech. So that's where their butt comes out first.
Right.
And my midwife was like, he's breech, he's here, like, yay. And you're just kind of like riding that afterbirth high, and looking back at pictures, and my husband got like a small little video in between. And I look at my belly, and I'm like, there's another baby. Like, there is another baby in there. But when you're in the moment, you're not, you're like La La Land, after you have kids. And so 6 minutes later, I thought I was pushing out the placenta, and out came another baby. And so we had surprise twins at home, both breech, in the middle of 2020. It was, and their birthday was 10/10/20, which is like so cool to me. I don't know. That's just such a cool
Right.
birthday.
I love that. But
yeah.
you were at term. They did not come early.
No, I went into labor on my due date. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. They were both breech, but
both
first,
breech,
right?
And
both of them?
But first. And I was carrying like 2 full-size term newborns, like 7/12 and 7/8, I think, or something. Like I was carrying like 15 pounds it was ridiculous. Like no wonder I was uncomfortable, and no wonder I was so large.
But not only was it a surprise to you guys and total just miracle God story, the way everything happened, but then you're on Instagram, like you're very pregnant on Instagram, sharing your story of pregnancy. And then you're sharing surprise twins. And I'm very curious about this. What was the response or reaction? Did you get lots of people giving you advice about twins, or like, I knew it the whole time, or why didn't you do this? Was it a mix of all of that?
I don't think that I don't remember anybody saying like, oh, I knew it the whole time. Maybe there was some people saying that, but I think most of it was shock, because I had said, I'm in labor, and then a couple days later I came back like, there's 2, and so I think people were like, wait, did you know the whole time? And I do remember there was this one girl who like had messaged somebody else that I knew and was like, she knew the whole time. She just did this as like a publicity stunt. And I'm like, that would have been like the craziest like cover up of all. I don't have the mindset to like be able to organize something like that. No, we had no idea. And I think mostly people were just super happy for us and supportive, and like the amount of support that we got, like there was a baby registry, and just like I have pictures still of like our front porch was just like floor to ceiling boxes from Amazon, diapers, wipes, like people showed up, and it was really incredible to experience firsthand, just the support from like literal strangers. And it was overall, it was a great experience, as great as it could have been being in the public eye, but I obviously had a lot less of a platform at that point. But yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. And then you moved again.
Yeah, we moved again, and then we moved again. We move a lot, and we're not military. I really don't desire another move for a long time. But yeah, we moved again, because we had moved into this house that was like a 70s ranch that was already too small for our 3 soon to be 4. We moved into that house. We had made an offer on it before we knew we were pregnant. And so when we found out we were pregnant with our 4th, we were like, okay, it's going to be tight, but we can make it work. And then we ended up having 5, like very quickly. And so we made it work for about a year. And then we were like, we're either going to need to build on, or like, it was like a 2-bedroom ranch house that we had like converted this like craft room into a bedroom where the twins were. It was just really, really tight. Like our bedroom didn't even have a door on it. Noah and I, we had like installed these like barn doors that slid, but like they didn't lock, which, with a lot of little kids, that just is not the best. And so, yeah, we ended up moving to be a little bit closer to the church that we were at. And we stayed there for, I think, 2 years before we made our big move out east to be more in nature. And we got land, and to be a little bit closer to family, where we could drive to them, versus in South Texas, we're very isolated down there. It's like another country. You have to fly or like drive for 14 hours to get anywhere. So,
right.
Yeah.
And now you have 6.
Yes.
When you got pregnant again, was your own speculation like, is this one? Because do twins run in your families at all?
Um, I think there's like some distant twins. Like, I don't think my husband's side has them, but my mom was like, yeah, we had like some distant uncles that were, I don't know, like not immediate to where we were like, oh, we have twins in our family that we knew of.
Yeah.
So, but if you have twins, then you're obviously more likely to have them. And we had fraternal twins. Um, so yeah, when we got pregnant with our six, I was like, I mean, how do you not, how do you not have that thought, you know?
Right.
And so I got a midwife here and was planning another home birth. And she had like a bedside ultrasound and just like a very like rudimentary, like you could just see like a very basic outline, but she was able to just see one early on, like I think 10 weeks, 11 weeks when she did that. And then I was measuring really far ahead. I was measuring like at least a month ahead at like 15 weeks, which I always do. I always do that. I always measure ahead and then I catch up.
Okay.
Cause like I said, I'm just very tall and broad. And so
Mhm.
I show early and then it kind of evens out. But she was like, she was like, we're not taking any chances. Like I would feel comfortable if you went and got an ultrasound. And I was like, that's fine. I will do that. So we went and got a dating ultrasound to make sure that there was only one and that also our dates were right. And yeah, so we got that official ultrasound like I think it was around, it was still around like 20 weeks. I think it was like 18 weeks or something like that. And they were able to just verify that there was one. So
Yeah.
that was a bit of a relief. Twins has been, especially unexpected twins, like surprise twins. It was obviously such a joy. Like we would never like take we would never be like, you know, who do we pick to trade it? Like you can't,
Yeah. Yeah.
we would never take it away, but like it is very challenging. It is a very challenging few years. And even still there's challenges. They're 4.5 now, but like so much different than newborn twins. That was a really hard season of life for us, for our marriage, for just physically, mentally, emotionally, like
Right.
so. And so it was very, very hard, but just so thankful for them and just their story and that they were healthy and that I was healthy and that my midwife knew what to do. And just, you know, because I know that not everybody has that type of labor and delivery with twins. And so we were very grateful.
Yeah. And I do want to ask about that. It's one thing to transition back into life postpartum with one newborn, but here you had surprise twins. So you had to transition with an unexpected turn of events, 3 other kids, postpartum hormones, all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
you admitted that it was a struggle and it was a really hard season, but like, walk me, how did you get through to the other side of that?
I mean, it was the Lord, honestly, like just realizing you get to the end of yourself at a certain point and you realize like, I can't do this in my own strength. And there was a period where I was um, up every like 15 minutes at night with them and I had supply issues. And we eventually ended up supplementing, which was like a huge humbling experience um, to just walk that road. And yeah, I don't think there's anything that was of me. You know,
Hmm.
it was a lot of growing and learning and humbling yourself and apologizing when you mess up and just putting one foot in front of the other and taking it day by day. And something that I've always told myself in hard circumstances in life is it's going to end. You know, these circumstances, we were even just talking about this tonight during Bible time, like there's seasons, right? Seasons are there for a reason. The weather, there's seasons, the cold, the bitter cold turns into spring, turns into the warmth of summer. And then by the time the warmth of summer is there, you're like, oh, I really want it to be cool again. And then the fall comes and then the winter comes. And then you're like, oh, I miss the warmth, you know, and we're
Hmm.
very like fickle beings in that way. But the Lord knew that. And like how neat that he knew that not only is there like a practical purpose in having seasons, and like a very like it needs to work that way for things to work in the world, but like for us as just like individuals to be able to have those seasons. And so, but they end, right? I'm so over the cold right now, but it's going to end, and there will be spring that's coming. And so I just try and like focus on the next, not in a way of like wishing it away, but just resting in that you know that, okay, like they're going to get older. They're not always going to be up every 15 minutes. I'm not always going to be up every 15 minutes. I'm going to sleep again. The Lord is just so kind to really just give you the strength that you need if you ask. And then when you come to that point where you're like, I can't do this anymore, it's a really humbling thing. And so, you know, just we were able to really grow as a couple. Like I said, it was hard. It was a very hard season for us. But we grew as a couple, we grew as a family. Our family unit really got stronger because we didn't have family around, like
Right.
extended family. And so it was just us. And yeah, it was a season for sure that I don't know if I would do it that way again in terms of like surprise twins, but I'm very thankful for the way that it all turned out. And yeah, just leaning on the Lord for strength, and there were lots of midnight prayers of like, I can't do this anymore. And then you did, because you had to, because there's two little babies that are depending on you. And you know, that's a very humbling thing.
Do you feel like that postpartum period in that season kind of set you up for the next one? Like that you had a different perspective than when it was just one baby?
Yes. I have I talk about this to multiple people. Like my singleton after twins healed me. Like we weren't sure we were going to have another baby, because you need some time after twins. And so there's an age gap between our six and the twins. I think it was like 3 years, a little bit over 3 years, which is our biggest age gap. I'm so glad that the Lord gave him to us, gave him to me. You really are able to just, and this is something that unless you've had multiples, you can't really grasp it, but just being able to fully enjoy just one baby. And it's not even that it's easier in a lot of senses, yes, but it's not even that. It's just the feeling of relaxation and just like peace when you can just hold that one baby and you don't have to worry that like another one is going to want to eat, another one's going to need you. I'm putting this baby down, but you're always thinking about that other baby, because you have to. And there's two of them. I don't know. I was always somebody that was like, I could never do multiples. And then the Lord was like, so I'm saying this and I probably shouldn't, but I don't know how people do triplets. I like, hats off to them. But like having one, it was just such a healing, redemptive postpartum experience. It was so wonderful. It was, I would do it 50 times over. It was bliss. I loved it. I loved it so much. I was able to just snuggle him and we co-slept, and he was just like, he was amazing. I loved it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes sense to me, and when you go through a difficult season and you have another similar season, but it's different, it doesn't feel as intense a lot of the times because of what you've been through.
Yeah.
What about your girls now? Are they, because you have girls and boys, and so are the girls are the oldest, are they more nurturing, kind of the second moms of the house? What is that dynamic?
They're amazing, especially our oldest. She just like is the best big sister. She's 11 and she loves babies. And she is like the best, most reliable kid. She's so responsible and just like, I mean, she's the typical oldest, like a little
I
bit
was gonna
bossy.
say, let's hear it for the oldest kids. Yeah.
Yes. But like, she's such a blessing. She was such a help with even the twins. But especially with our oldest or with our youngest, they just have this bond, like our bookends, they just have this bond, and it's nothing that I am like forcing her to do. Like, you hear a lot of negativity when it comes to being on social media with large families, that like I don't even know what they call it, sister momming or like parentification of the oldest, where they're helping raise the youngest or the littles. And I just think that comes from a very naive place, because in large families, there's just a dynamic where, yes, the older kids do help with the youngers, but it's not a forced thing. Like, Selah will literally come up and just be like, "Can I take him? Like, give him to me." Like, she loves
Yeah.
it. She loves it. There's no forcing there at all. And she's such a help. She loves cooking. And so she like makes breakfast a few times a week. And she's just amazing. And then my 9-year-old, she's coming into learning how to do these things as well. And so we're just kind of encouraging her in that. She just made breakfast this morning, and I'm like teaching her how to make eggs. And she loves babies as well. And she's a little bit more of a, like, she'll take the twins and they'll just like be playing for like an hour, and I'm like, what is she even doing with them? Because like, she's amazing. She's like the best little. So she honestly like gravitates towards like the toddler age. So it's really interesting to see kind of how their different personalities come out as siblings. So yes, to answer your question, they're such little moms. They're such little nurturers. And Selah, she says, I'm gonna have 2 daughters when I grow up, and the first one I'm going to name Esther, and the second one I'm going to name Ruth. And I was like, and I told her, I was like, well, what if you have a boy? So, but like, that's just like her mind, she's just like, she wants to be a mom, she wants to be a chef, and then she wants to be a mom. So like, it's just so
I
fun.
love that.
So fun.
So cute. So you touched on it a little bit, but what is the personality dynamic between all of the siblings? Because with them being so close in age, especially, I feel like the pendulum would swing between everyone having a moment where they get along really well, and then maybe that moment dissipates a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And I think that that's normal. And I think that especially in like a larger family, you just have different ebbs and flows of who's getting along and who's not. Our oldest is like typical first child, leader, boss, nurturer, responsible. She'll try anything. And then our second daughter is very shy and reserved, but like so sweet. And they get along great, I would say like 90% of the time. But then when they are not getting along, it is like, girls, like, I tell them all the time, I'm like, I would have died for a sister growing up. Like, I wanted a sister so bad. Like, you only get one. Like, this is your sister. Unless the Lord blesses us with another little baby girl, like, this is it. You guys are sisters forever. And I think that, adolescents, like preteen, kind of like getting into that age where they can honestly treat friends better than they treat their siblings at times. And we really I try to encourage them, like, your siblings are forever, and we really need to work on being kind. But like, they get along really, really great most of the time. And then the boys are all just like boys, they're just so much energy. It's very overstimulating a lot of the time. And we're very, very grateful. In Texas, we didn't have basements. But here we have a basement that is like a huge open like playroom area. And so there are multiple times a day where I am like, downstairs, go downstairs, because they can't really go outside. I mean, we go outside daily for at least a walk, but like this time of year, it's so frigid. So it is like, go downstairs, please go downstairs, because I can't handle the noise. And they have fun down there too. But the boys all just kind of like the twins and our middle son. He's 7 and the twins are 4. And so they'll play lightsabers, and they have little boxing gloves that they'll hit the bag down there. But honestly, all 5 of the older kids will go downstairs and just run around playing Nerf guns, and like they get along pretty well, I think, for siblings. Of course, there's fights and there's people getting hurt and things that we have to kind of navigate, just with like using our words kindly, and then people will get hurt, and we're like, okay, like we can't be physical, it's like drawing a line, but like also recognizing that there's 5 of them and there's
Yeah.
a lot of different personalities there.
Yeah, my oldest will be 15 soon, and my youngest will be 11 shortly after that. And just last night, they were laughing so hard they were crying, just talking with one another, making up stories and stuff. And 2 minutes later, one was shouting at the other, and it's just like, how did we go from this to this? But I think it is just a typical sibling thing, and it's growth and relationships and all that sort of thing.
We repeat the verse, kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul. Like very, very frequently, that is something that we are reminding them.
It's funny. Okay, so I just thought of this when you said that, and my children are older. Well, my oldest is older than yours, but there is something about motherhood that I learned from you forever ago. And it was listen all the way right away with a happy heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was years ago, but we say that all the time. Where did that come from for you?
Ginger Hubbard.
I love her.
Yeah. So she would always say, we obey all the way right away and with a happy heart. And I think she got that from maybe Ted Shrimpton. I don't know. I don't want to say where she got that from, because I don't know, but that's where I first heard it. And I was like, that's gold. And I like wrote it on a thing, and it was like hanging up on our wall for a time. But yeah, that's funny that you use it too.
Even still all these years later. And even just a couple nights ago, I think my daughter wasn't moving quickly enough. And so my son was like, all the way right away with the happy heart. Or actually, I think maybe he said, delayed obedience is disobedience.
Is disobedience, yes. It's so true though. So I mean, we see that in scripture, don't we? Like, there's plenty of examples in scripture where we see delayed obedience, or even just like not obeying exactly the way the Lord said. People died, like very, very intense consequences. And so, obviously that's not what our kids experience, but delayed obedience is disobedience for sure.
I know. And I just appreciate the fact that when we don't think they are, they're still listening, and they're still gleaning from us and all of that. So what would you say are your favorite things about this season in life? You're homeschooling, homesteading, you've got 6 littles. What are some of your favorite things about this season?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of things that come to mind, but I think seeing sibling relationships grow, those bonds kind of get stronger, and just seeing their personalities come out more as they get older. I really love the baby phase, but there's a lot of things about that phase that are trying for me. Just like the constantness of like having to always be on, and because 11-month-olds they constantly just try and kill themselves. That's just all day long. They just, what can I climb? What can I fall off of? Like, so there's a lot of things that are hard about that phase for me, even though I love babies. I'm really enjoying my older kids and just seeing their passions come out and seeing what they're interested in, and just kind of just learning more about them in that season of their life. And then just being able to kind of create our own family dynamic. My husband and I grew up in a very different like style of families. Like, I was raised in a single mother home, and he grew up in church, and his mom and dad, his dad worked a lot, but like they were married, and like it was just, we were just a little bit different, but like to be able to come together and say like, okay, I liked these things about my childhood, but I didn't really like these things. And then I say, okay, well, I enjoy doing this, but I didn't really enjoy doing this. And then kind of melding that together and creating our own family dynamic. It's just so neat to think about, like, you are in charge of your kid's childhood, and this is what they're going to remember. And our kids are so blessed, and we are so blessed. Like we're so grateful to be able to do what we do, and to be able to give them the things that we didn't have growing up. And so I think, that brings me joy to be able to create these rhythms of being together, and having our daily Bible time. We've been doing Bible time as a family the last couple years, every single night. I mean, there's nights we miss, but like for the most part, it's a pretty regular routine for us, and it's changed a lot of things about our family, and it's just a really neat time. And so, just little things like that I'm like, this is going to be like a core memory for our kids,
Yeah.
and it's a core memory for me too. And being able to really teach them the word, and hopefully have that impact their hearts. And that's all we want for our kids, is for them to make their faith their own. I don't want them to just believe something because we've told them to, because we've read them the Bible and told them what to think. I want them to ask the questions, and to really ponder these things, and to allow the Lord to convict them of their sin and their need for a savior, because the gospel is the gospel, but without you recognizing that you need a savior, that there's nothing more. And so just being able to see them kind of like start to the wheels are turning, in our older ones especially. I know there's kids that profess belief at a very young age, but we really try and take it slow, and just kind of not push the envelope. And so yeah, that was kind of like all over the place, but
No, I think, well, first of all, I love that answer. I love it so much. And it really places the importance and the value on discipling our children. And it starts at home.
yeah.
And I mean, scripture says to be prepared to give an answer for the faith that you hold. And so, what better way than to take it slow and make sure they understand, and that it's not just because my parents did this kind of thing. I guess, wow, there's so many places I want to go, but I need to go to the end of our episode, unfortunately, I think. So I will ask one more question. If there's a mom out there, I was looking at the saved posts I have in my Instagram account, and they're like all purely Parsons remedies, like
oh yeah,
all of them, sore throat, fever, like all of the things. If there is a mom who wants to take that one step or more control over the health of her household, where would you recommend she start?
That is a very loaded question. Because
not intentionally.
everybody's coming from their own place, and their own journey. I'm trying to think how I want to answer this, because it's so important. Because you don't want people to be overwhelmed. I think that it can be very overwhelming to see somebody at their decade into living more holistically, and think like, where do I even start? And so that's why it's such a good question, because you just have to start. And so I think the first thing would be eliminating the things that are causing harm. Like there's like two sides of this, because you had mentioned natural remedies, and so there's that side of it, health, I guess, the health side. And for us, it was kind of like opting out of the system. And we have our babies, and we research so many things before we have a baby, like what car seat to use, what crib is the best, what mattress do I get, anything and everything we're researching, but we never, or I don't say, I guess not never, but a lot of people don't think about the things that happen after the baby comes. And so, you can opt out of anything. It is your child. You do not have to follow anything, that you don't feel comfortable. And so I would say doing your research, knowing exactly, especially when it comes to things that are going into your child's body, knowing what those are, what the side effects are, because for every pharmaceutical there is a side effect, and even just the visits and the first year, you're going to the pediatrician every, what is it, 2 months, for these well
Mm-hmm.
checks, and they happen to coincide with the CDC schedule, and so when you start to think about that, and like we're giving literal newborns a vaccination for an STD, why? So I think just having that mindset of like asking the questions and not being afraid to find out things that maybe you didn't know, that are maybe a little bit against the mainstream, because you will get some head turns to go against some of these things, but it's so important because you can always do, you can never undo. And so I think for us it was just kind of taking a step back and removing ourselves from feeling like we had to, and that was hard for me as a nurse to unlearn a lot of that and then kind of like relearn as I did my research. But there's so many good resources out there now. And in terms of natural remedies, like as something comes up, just research it. Like I said, like if my kid got an ear infection, the doctor says antibiotics, but let's look into it. Like, is there something else I can do? Because antibiotics are not harmless. They completely wipe out the gut flora, and then you're dealing with effects from that. Your kid may have skin issues because they don't have any, all of our immunity comes from our gut, or a majority of it comes from the gut. And so there's always kind of a cascade of things that happen when you're dealing with the westernized model of health.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of like the medical side. I would say just like question everything, question it all. You're not a Google mom, or maybe you are. Like, take that hat and wear it proudly. That means that you care enough to do your research. And the parsonsco.com, I have a whole page dedicated to specifically vaccines, but I talk about this kind of stuff all the time on my page as well, just living more holistically, and even just like natural remedies. I have a whole collection of things that I've done over the years. But then another side of that is just like your everyday, like day to day, food is really important. Food matters. What you're feeding your kids matter. And it makes me really, really sad to see what we're giving our kids. Not our kids, but like just the US as a collective, like what we are
Right.
allowing our kids to consume. So if you can, just cook more meals at home, if you can simplify, it doesn't have to be complicated. If you can source quality meat and, introduce more vegetables. And my people are always like, how do you get your kids to eat that? And it's like, that's all. Like my 6 month, or our youngest now, when he was like 6 months old, he was like eating, egg yolks and bone broth. And then we introduced sauerkraut. He loves sauerkraut. Like what, it's totally abnormal to what you're told. Like
Yeah.
purees, give him sweet potatoes and bananas, and so, but then getting older, just the things that we are allowing our kids to consume, it's so sad. It's these franken foods that are not even food. They're not even real food, and they're addicting, and they're designed to be addicting. They are designed to get you to want more of them and to not ever be satiated. And we see that in the obesity rate of literal children. I don't think anything makes me
Mm-hmm.
more angry, or not angry, but like more just like upset and sad than seeing an obese child, because that was not their choice.
Mm,
They were given things and they have a problem, but it didn't have to be that way. And so food is so important. And then removing things from your home that are increasing the toxic burden on your family. So everybody has a toxic load, and we're all exposed to things just living life, and we can't be so stressed out about the things that we're exposed to outside of our home, because to a certain extent we can't control that, but inside of our home we can. And so the easiest place I tell people to start is like your cleaning supplies. Just taking
yeah.
cleaning supplies, you can replace so much of the toxic things that are under your cabinet. I don't have to worry about my baby opening my cabinets under my kitchen and pulling something out that is going to injure, that's going to hurt them if they ingest it or whatever. And that's not a hard switch. It's so easy. And so things like cleaning supplies, not using fragrance in your home, not these candles and the Febreze and the laundry detergent that is so ultra scented. Like, I should not be able to smell you walking towards me if you're 20 feet away. That's not a good thing. We are so over sanitized and over fragranced in our society. So anything that we can remove when it comes to the toxic load that we're putting on our bodies is great. That is such a loaded question, Val, and I feel like I did not do it justice. But like, there is just so much, and it's so hard to like condense it into A, B, and C. But
Yeah. No, it is.
yeah,
I would say commit to starting
yes,
somewhere and
yeah,
then decide what that's going to be, whether
yeah,
it's going to be changing the food you consume, and just do it incrementally over time.
yes,
It's kind of like I was told growing up, you kids just want everything that your parents worked so many years for. This is kind of that same thing. You're not going to get it all at once. You have to
yeah.
incrementally do it over time.
Yes,
And
it's not going to happen overnight, and nor should it. Like,
right.
it's
Well,
not an
because that can also
overhaul.
be a shock to your own
Yeah,
system and body. But
yeah,
mentally,
yeah,
if you try to do everything all at once, it's too much.
yeah.
And I mean, you're talking to a woman who was raised on Taco Bell and antibiotics. And so
Mhm.
you were talking about the things that antibiotics do. And I'm like, well, yeah. And then you mix that with the Taco Bell diet and you don't have a gut. Like, and
Yeah,
I'm in my 40s now and still paying some consequences for growing up that way. So it is so important to commit to starting and to start somewhere and to start
yeah,
small, not
yes,
overwhelm yourself. So
yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time because it is an important answer. And then I guess as we leave here, how can people find you, follow you, and learn more?
Yeah. So we have an Instagram, and that is kind of where I'm most active. You'll mainly see me, and I kind of show like just our day to day life, the kids and homeschooling and homesteading, and so I'm on Instagram at Purely Parsons, and then my husband and I have a business together, and that is purelyparsons.com, where we talked about it a little bit before, the elderberry kits, but it's so much more now. We're so grateful that the Lord has blessed that and grown it. And so we have, I think it's close to 30 products now, maybe less, but
It's fantastic.
essential oil blends, single essential oils. We have a hair serum that's why my hair looks so wet right now, because I put an oil treatment in, and then I was gonna to wash it out last night, but I ended up getting a migraine. Anyway,
Oh,
the hair serum, we have a face serum, just a lot of like natural products that our passion is really to push against the greenwashing that's happening in the natural wellness world, because there's so much of it, and it can be really tricky and overwhelming for people who may not know how to read ingredient labels. And so our passion is just to like really just use natural, recognizable things that the Lord has given us in nature. You can read every single ingredient. You don't have to like go Google some chemical, there's no lab synthetics. So that's kind of what we do over there. And that is our day-to-day business, and it's so fun. It's so exhausting. But yeah, so we're at purelyparsons.com and on Instagram at purelyparsons. And I did mention the parsonsco.com. That's more of like, there's some blog posts there, some archived posts from Instagram that you can like search, but I haven't added to that in a long time. But there's things on there, and then the vaccine tab, and then there's some other stuff over there too. So that's pretty much it.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being a guest on the Motherhood Experience and sharing your journey with the rest of us.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. To join our exclusive TME community, head over to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Be sure to follow the Motherhood Experience on Instagram, and please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.